Old Victrola Inc. produces top quality stereos and uses process costing. The manufacturing of stereos is such that direct materials, labor, and overhead are all added evenly throughout the production process. Due to this smooth production process, only one cost category, manufacturing cost, is used for equivalent unit calculations. Old Victrola had the following cost and production information available for March and April. So we have various pieces of information here, cost numbers, and then unit numbers. Beginning work in process was 30% complete in March and 60% complete in April. Ending work in process was 60% complete in March and 35% complete in April. For each of the 2 months, calculate equivalent units. Based on the equivalent units produced, did total manufacturing cost per unit increase or decrease between the 2 months? And then finally, did the direct materials per equivalent unit increase or decrease between March and April? So let's first come up with these equivalent unit calculations, and then from there we'll be able to use those numbers, use those units to be able to answer the questions about the cost. So first for March, it says that our beginning work in process units is 7,000 units, and beginning work in process is 30% complete. All right, so we have our 7,000 units. However, that 30% doesn't belong in March. It belongs back in February, right? So it's the it's the remaining 70% that we're interested in. So times 0.7 is 4,900 units. All right. And then it says units transferred to finished goods was 18,000. Well, those 18,000 also include the 7,000 units of width, right? So we're going to need to subtract those out. So we're going to start with the 18,500 and subtract the 7,000 that were started last month. So that will give me 11,500 that belong in March. And then the next thing it says is ending work in process is 4,800 units. And the ending work in process is 60% complete with respect to March. So that was done during March, and the remaining 40% will be done in April. So we can multiply that times the 0.6. All right, let's throw that in my calculator so I don't screw that up. All right, I get 2,880 units. So if I just add these up, that should give me my equivalent units for March. 49 plus the 11,500 plus 2,880 gives me 19,280 equivalent units. This is equivalent units. All right, not money. Okay, and then for April, we started out April with 4,800 units. And it says 60% complete in April, meaning that that 60% was completed actually in March. So I want to multiply this times the 0.4, right? The remaining units to be done. So 4,800 times 0.4 gives me 19,020. 1,920. And then my units transferred to finished goods is the 23,000 here, right? And we want to subtract out these 4,800 units because they weren't started this month, and I want this to be just started and completed. So 23,000 minus 4,800 gives me 18,200. All right. And then for ending inventory, I'm at 6,400. And it says that 35% completed in April. So times 0.35, because that's actually the April piece. And the remaining pieces belong in May. So 6,400 times 0.35 gives me 2,240. And if I add all of that up, 1,920 plus 18,200 plus 2,240 gives me 22,360. Here we go. And this is equivalent units. So now I have equivalent units for each, for March and for April. The problem then says, based on the equivalent units produced, did total manufacturing cost per unit increase or decrease between March and April? So I need to take total manufacturing cost and divide by the units to get a cost per unit. So this row, this row is A, right? These pieces of information. And then B is going to be the 6,000 or 6 million. Oh, no, I wrote that down wrong. 979, 360. So this piece of information divided by 19,280. So let's throw that in our calculator. 6,979, 360 divided by 19,280. And I get $362 per unit for March. And for April, we'll take the 7.7 million, 7,781, 280, and we'll divide that by 22,360. All right. So this is dollars. So try to be clear. 7,781,280 divided by 22,360, and I get 348 per unit. So the question, did total manufacturing costs increase or decrease between March and April? From March to April, it went down, right? We had a decrease. And then in C, the question is, did direct material cost per equivalent unit increase or decrease? So now we're just going to be looking, same sort of idea, just at these two numbers instead, right? So that's going to be C. We're going to say 978, 460, and 1,168,310 divided by the 19,280 and by the 22,360. All right, 978, 460 divided by 19,280. I get 5075 per unit. And for the million, 168,310 divided by 22,360, I get 52.25 per unit. And so for direct materials cost, we have an increase, right? So month over month, we have an increase, whereas in total manufacturing cost, we had a decrease.